And Theo, I guess, you know, it's hard to get away from the story, but one of the things that happened yesterday, amongst all of the other bizarre happenings all around the place, was Ed Balls interviewing his own wife, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, on Good Morning Britain.
Yes, it was bizarre.
Yeah.
You know, why ITV took that decision to allow Ed Balls, who of course was worked for Ed Miliband, who was the Shadow Chancellor, and worked for Gordon Brown, big figure in the Labour world.
Yes.
And now, after Strictly Come Dancing, has sort of rebranded himself as a television personality. Why they allowed him as a presenter on Good Morning Britain to
and without making any reference to the fact that she was his wife, because not, you know, obviously we know it, but not everybody does. Let's have a look at the clip.
Like many of our viewers will have done at home since those terrible killings in Southport, there have been identifiable individuals on social media who have been inciting not just riot, but violence. They've been using racist language. They've been using falsehoods about what happened in Southport. This is happening on the social media platforms. What can be done, what should be done now by the social media companies and the police and the government to stop this happening? Because it's been happening for a week.
Well, you're right, Ed, that we have seen these things that are appearing online that are clearly criminal. That social media has put rocket boosters under the far-right extremist organisation, and also some of the violence that we have seen organising some of the violence.
I mean, what she doesn't say is, nice to see you, darling. Haven't seen you since a couple of hours ago when we were having toast and tea together.
It's just about how people perceive this. Even if you'd done a Frost Nixon, and it'd been like it'd been the hardest grilling that you could possibly imagine. Right. His wife goes, right, well.
But how do you do it without declaring the interest? You know,
you have to. You either have to declare the interest, but of course, you know this, Mike. You've been in this game far longer than most of us. What you do is you have somebody come in over the top at the beginning and go, right, OK, we've got the Home Secretary. Let's sub you out, Ed. Sit this one out. Bring you back in a couple of days' time. You know,
nip off to the green room, have a glass of water.
Have a glass of water. We're going to have to bring somebody else in to do this, because it's just not possible for you to interview your own wife. You know, and you would expect ITV just to set a really high bar on this, especially given where we are at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely right. A couple of other stories to get into, because there are other stories that are going on, particularly the financial markets. We broke the news yesterday that the Nikkei over in Japan and the Hong Kong markets were absolutely crashing. It now turns out that the FTSE has also crashed following problems in New York as well. Something like £10 billion wiped off it, front page of the Telegraph.
Yeah, and this is all over fears about there's going to be a recession in the United States. Wall Street Bank, JP Morgan has warned there's a 50% chance the US will fall into recession. Goldman Sachs saying there's a 25% chance of a recession, and that's had a huge effect, 40 billion off the London FTSE.
Right, which is more bad news for pensioners, because if you've got a pension, and I know that many people will sit there going, oh, we haven't all got pensions, you know, but if you have got a pension which is invested in these kind of markets, you're losing money.
And if you just have a portfolio of stocks and shares, you're losing huge amounts of money as well. Japan, of course, suffered its worst, perhaps more than any other market. They saw it's effectively a Black Monday.
Yes.
Its worst performance since 1987.
Yeah, absolutely right. One story that has piqued my interest only because of the driving obsession that I have. Page 14 of the Times. Dash cams have turned citizens into traffic cops. There's an amazing statistic. It says police forces in England and Wales have been sent more than 24,000 clips in the first half of this year, an increase of almost 40% compared with the same period last year. So basically what they're doing, presumably, is sending these dash cam clips of people driving badly in order to sort of shop them to the police.
The CPS love
Amazing.
It. The CPS love it, because you're doing their job for them, and they just... I know a lot of Uber drivers have dash cams just to protect themselves because they're driving so much, so they just put in a camera, then it just clears anything up. If there's an accident, they don't have to have a back and forth with insurance companies. It's just all there. But of course, there's another way. There's other ways that footage can be used, and that is to shop people to, if they have a row, or it's a way of saying, well, I don't need to have any road rage. I'll just pass this footage on to the police or the CPS, and they can bring a prosecution.
And I guess it might be, for some people, defensive against some attack that they might be under from cyclists who are claiming that they've done something wrong.
Yes, and cyclists can be quite forthright in their views. I mean, I dared to put the front wheels of my car in one of those cycling boxes.
Yes.
At the front, just before the traffic.
Oh, they hate that.
They went.
They don't like that.
Just going absolutely mad at me.
Yeah, I did that once.
But you can't do it.
I did that once. I had some woman knocking on my window, going, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean? I mean, you know, I'm sitting here. You're sitting there. What's the problem? If you want to go before me, I'll let you go."
Yeah, but they get very.
For?
But this is like their special box that they want to sit in. Yeah.
Yes, and I suppose what we should also recognise is that Keeley, Golden Girl Keeley, Queen Keeley, is on the front pages winning a gold medal, the 800 metres last night in the Olympics, which is great. Also, Freddie Flintoff. This is in most of the papers, but the Sun's actually put it on the front. I happen to know quite a lot about this story because people have told me exactly what happened to him and how awful it was. That he was literally sort of dragged along the ground when he had that crash, with his face, and you could see that he's, you know, his visage has sort of changed forever. And he says, "I shouldn't be here after my Top Gear smash."
And yeah, I mean, the mental scars of such a terrible accident are clearly, obviously, they're visible, but also behind the effect on his mental health as well. He's just left crying
bursting into tears
every 2 minutes as a result of what had happened. I mean, I think it's extraordinary he's managed to make the comeback, and I think it's obviously a credit to him and his family.
And he's got
managed to come back and
a new show coming out.
But you can't, when these things happen, you can never underestimate, you know, the mental impact that they can have, as well as, of course, the very obvious physical scars as well. And it's fantastic he's been able to make a
absolutely. Comeback. Yesterday we talked a bit about seagulls. There was a story from Lyme Regis that, you know, the seagull problem has become so bad that actually it was a young Swedish tourist who's ended up being hospitalised because this seagull, you know, sort of swooped down and tried to grab a croissant out of the little girl's hand. There's a story in The Sun, page 3. Best way to stop seagulls nicking your chips is by staring at them, apparently. So if you stare at them in the eyes as they're about to swoop on you, apparently that will stop them.
Do you think? I'm not convinced.
I'm not.
I've looked a seagull in the eye, and I've never had that desire.
Well, I told the story yesterday of how I was actually mugged by one when I was in Lyme Regis. It clattered into the side of my head and stole my sunglasses.
I had one where I had this sort of, I'd got this sort of cone of, you know, little bits of, I don't know, mussels. And the best bit that I was looking forward in this sort of seafood cone was the prawn that they put on top. You only get one because of course they're the most expensive, aren't they? Seagull just comes in. I hadn't even sat down. Just came in and just took it.
Unbelievable. Absolutely incredible.
Any amount of staring would have saved it.
You're going to stare after the event and just stare in wonder as to how it could have happened. A couple of weird stories, though. Young Robert Kennedy, whose sort of ratings in the polls have collapsed ever since Kamala Harris has come into the race, and looks as though he's probably going to just drop out. He's got a very odd story that he's told about running over a bear and somehow dumping it in a park.
This was apparently a myth of Central Park. There was this dead bear found. There was this bicycle next to it. And nobody knew how this had come to pass. But now the New Yorker...
He's saying he put it there.
He put it there. It was a prank, and he's got a photograph of him with his hand in the dead bear's mouth. And apparently it was all about to be revealed in the New Yorker magazine, but he's decided to come clean that he was responsible for the prank, and it was just a prank. The bear hadn't been run over, and he'd taken the carcass, the bear's carcass, to the park. I don't know if he's expecting to win any votes off it. I wouldn't have thought it would be the best approach to trying to
very strange
overhaul
story.
Kamala Harris's
very strange
Donald
story.
Trump's,
Theo, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.